gluten-free pancakes. Now, I feel like there's a lot you could say about pancakes. They're a staple in the United States, and I think a lot of people also feel kind of guilty eating them just because the name is just pancakes. It's a cake in a pan. It tends to be very sweet, very starchy. It's just kind of bread, and you're not really getting anything else in there. So I want to show you how you can make your pancakes a little bit more interesting and healthy. And by healthy, I mean you're not loading it with syrup, and you're getting a decent amount of fiber in there. So that's going to help balance out the starchiness a little. And so you just don't have to feel like guilty about eating delicious food. I feel like we all can work on our relationships with how we think about different foods. And a lot of times there's just small, simple swaps that can improve that. So for here, this recipe, it's coming from my cookbook. I have a few other breakfast recipes in there, so you can grab that in the description. What I really like with this recipe is you can make it your own. And I think the best way to sweeten these is by using some seasonal fruits that you have lying around. I happen to have had some cherries. I used them in a cherry soda video I posted the other day, so if you missed that. And I wanted to use the rest of them before they went bad, because I feel like it's summertime and fruits always seem to spoil very quickly on my counter. Back to the recipe, sweeten your pancakes with fruits. If you're using the right kinds, or even just what's in season, it should already be pretty sweet on its own. And a lot of times just kind of cooking it down or pureeing it is gonna give it a little bit more moisture feeling. So you can skip out on adding a whole bunch of syrup. Sometimes I like honey, but another conversation. So we've got cherries, chocolate, and vanilla. That's gonna be the main flavoring here. I like to use cassava flour. It's gluten-free, it comes from yuca. It still is kind of starchy, but it's a gluten-free alternative that isn't as highly processed as a lot of our white, conventional, bleached, unbleached, whatever flours most of us are used to. I like to add a little bit of ground flaxseed in there just to give you some healthier fats along with a little bit more fiber. I guess a little protein, like a negligible amount. You need your baking soda and your salt. These are gonna add a little flavor, and the baking soda with some acidity is gonna help it rise a little. Well, not rise, it's gonna create a little bit of those bubbles, and those bubbles turn into air pockets while it's cooking, and that's what makes pancakes a little bit more fluffier versus kind of flat and dense. And I haven't found a good vegan alternative to this, so I'm just using eggs. If you have something you like using, I've heard applesauce, I've heard seltzer water, or like you can make these without the eggs. They just won't hold as well together, and the flavor might be a little bit different. I don't like doing the whole flax egg thing. I think when you do that for something like this, that you're cooking directly in a pan, it just gets very chewy. And anytime I've ever tried anything, it just gets pretty stuck to the pan. It doesn't cook through all the way. I would save that more for like baked goods, you know, in the oven. But you need a little acidity in here. That could be vinegar, lemon juice, pineapple juice might even work. I'm putting in a little bit of coconut oil, and then you can use water or any kind of nut milk of your choice. So I personally really like the cassava flour. Sometimes I do add a little bit of almond flour in there as well, just because almond flour is basically keto. So there's relatively no carbs in there. You're getting a lot more fiber. The only problem is I feel your pancakes come out a little bit drier. So sometimes I try to balance it out a little if I'm feeling like I don't want to have, you know, too much starch at this moment. And I'm sure you've all heard by now, whenever you're cracking your eggs, it's better to use a flat surface. I'm using the side of the cup. When you use a jagged surface or something hard, the shell breaks on it, and then that creates some cracks, and sometimes those cracks are what end up in your egg. So flat surface, you get a cleaner break, less shards. I also like to make sure that when I'm breaking it, I'm not sticking my thumbs in it. I'm trying to hold the sides of the shell, grip it, and pull them apart. That's kind of how I do my like one hand thing. I don't know if you can really see it in the video. But why am I even talking about this? You probably don't care, you just want pancakes. But for those 3 people out there, I got you. When I'm making my pancakes, I combine the dry ingredients first and then the wet in a separate container. And then I add the wet to the dry. I do that just because if you do it the other way around and you try to empty a giant bowl of flour into another bowl, you're gonna basically create like a smoke bomb, and it's just gonna all over the place. So it lets you kind of keep things a little neater. For the cherries, you can do these however you want. I do not recommend doing the straw poke through thing. You've probably seen people on like TikTok or maybe other YouTubers tell you that this is the best way. I didn't like it because I felt like they would still get stuck. And when you're doing a lot of cherries, like what I'm doing here, the part that isn't the seed of the cherry just gets stuck in the straw. And I was using a reusable straw when I've done these before. And it's a huge pain to get all of those cherry bits out of the straw unless you have something small enough like a pipe cleaner to poke through. So I just use a knife. You can cut them into halves or quarters, pop out the seed. Or if I am just making these for myself and no one else is gonna be partaking in the pancakes and I'm not concerned with hygiene, I just kind of like bite it off. Like, I'm gonna eat it anyway. It's faster, less things to clean, way less messy. But yeah, bite it in half. You can kind of pick out the seed with your tongue, and then you have 2 clean halves, and that's it. And these are gonna make a huge mess, so just make your mess. When you're done, you can clean up, wash your hands, so it doesn't look like a crime scene or anything like that. And so now that I have my cherries all pitted, I'm gonna take a few of them, just dice them up a little bit smaller. You don't have to do this in your hand. A cutting board is probably way easier. I just only have a wooden one and I didn't want it to just soak up all of the red. I'm adding some of those to the pancake. The rest I'm gonna puree and save them for later. As for the chocolate, I'm using unsweetened baker's chocolate. It's dark chocolate. Quick tip, you can always just flip your chocolate around, check the ingredients, check the sugar, see if there's any added sugar. But regardless of which brands might contain more heavy metals or less, I at least just try to go for minimal ingredients that are necessary to the chocolate. So you might have cocoa butter, cocoa powder, chocolate. Sometimes there is some kind of sweetener. But the things that I try to avoid are the emulsifiers, which are just helping it stay smooth. I think it's kind of unnecessary. And I just want to try to eat as clean as I can when I'm cooking for myself. So that's like your lecithins, maybe some soy products, just other things to try to make the chocolate more creamy. I just use a mug or something like that to just kind of gently smash it into smaller bits. And now I have some chocolate chips, essentially. Some of them are a little big. I'm folding this into the cherries and the pancake mix as well. This way, every bite, you're gonna have a chance to either get a little chocolatey bit and or a little cherry piece, which is just, it's delightful. I recommend, if you're not very big on bitter flavors, make sure you cut these up into smaller pieces, because if you get big chunks of chocolate, you're gonna get some pretty bitter bites. And I didn't realize this because I like bitter, but I've heard from other people, so careful. And this is something that is gonna apply to all types of pancakes, not just these gluten-free versions. But when you're cooking them, I think they can be intimidating. I feel like the first one almost always ends up burnt or undercooked just because you're figuring out the right temperature that your pan should be at. I find a medium to lower end heat works better. The trick here is let your pan get hot. I'm using cast iron. I'm letting it sit there for a few minutes if I have to. And the way I know it's ready, you can do the little water droplet test, but if you just hover your hand right above the actual pan, don't touch the pan, you're gonna burn yourself. If you can keep your hand there, it's probably not hot enough yet. If you can keep it there for a second or two and then you start to feel the heat and it makes you wanna take it away, that's how you know you're probably at a good temperature. So you can add your batter from there. And one thing I didn't mention is for the flour, you should be measuring it by weight. I don't have a scale, so I just kind of use a cup. The problem here is depending on the density, the moisture in the air, 1 cup of flour could be very different one day versus another. Or maybe you keep your flour in the fridge versus the cupboard, summer, winter. So for these, don't stress it too much. Because we're making a batter, you can just add some more liquid if you need to. A chunkier batter is gonna give you a much thicker, heartier pancake. If you like your pancakes more like silver dollars, don't put as much flour, do more liquids. I have the exact measurements written out on my cookbook, so if you need that, that's there. Or you can probably just Google something right now. I don't feel like looking at exactly what I wrote. So if it's too liquidy, you're gonna get a crepe. I like to find this healthy medium between like that crepe liquidy that you can just pour it out and it just comes out perfectly, and to where it still kind of sticks to the spoon or the whisk or whatever it is you're using. So like I was saying earlier, I'm gonna show you guys how the pancakes might differ if you have a thicker batter versus a thinner. So this first one is the thicker batter. And in general, regardless of how you're making your pancakes, don't touch them. Put it in the pan. If the pan's the right temperature, you'll hear a little sizzle. I used avocado oil, by the way. Don't put it in a dry pan. It will stick. I just personally try to avoid the ultra refined oils, and I find avocado, coconut, and olive oil at least are typically cold pressed and don't go through heavy processing, but depends on the brand. So this could take a few minutes. I feel like 4 to 5 minutes, you should start to see the edges dry out and you'll see bubbles start to form on the parts that are cooked or cooking through. So what you really want to find is bubbles popping up towards the center of the pancake, and that means it's good for flipping. If you didn't make it too thick. If it's super thick, like a deep dish pizza, you'll figure it out. So you give it a flip. I just let this go for another minute or two and your pancake is pretty much done. Here is the thinner batter. For this, I literally just took it to the side and added some more water to it. A lot of people like to use milks. I honestly haven't really noticed a big difference in flavors unless I'm using coconut milk. So you could probably save yourself a couple bucks and just use water. And same thing as before, you're looking for that first bubble to pop up. The edge is gonna start crisping up a little. The pancake also shouldn't be stuck to the pan. Like if I shook it right now, it should slide around the pan because the bottom has a nice sear or crust, golden, all the buzzwords to it. Flip it again, another minute or two, and you're ready to start eating. So I made a few of these off camera, but this is what they look like right now. The color is a little off, but that is coming from the dark red from the cherries. That juice is very colorful. So I feel like it made it almost a little, purple? I don't know. Let me know what color you think the pancakes are. Just please don't say green. Nobody wants a green pancake, unless it's like matcha or pistachio, which sounds kind of good. Or pandan. You can prepare these however you want. I'm gonna show you the 2 ways you can eat them. This first way is more elegant, proper. You cut it with your fork and knife, and you have your vanilla cherry sauce on the side. I forgot to tell you, when I blended the cherries, I added the vanilla in there, my bad. And then at your leisure, you can just gently dip your pancake into your vanilla cherry sauce. It's gonna be juicy, it's gonna be cherry-y. Normally I don't like cherry flavored things, but real cherry with a little bit of vanilla, oh, it's so good. And now if you're just like a complete savage and you're like, yo, I don't care about manners, I just want this pancake to be like juicy and tasty as fuck, this is how you're gonna do it. You're gonna get yourself one of those big wide bowls, because I don't know why, but I just feel like everything tastes and looks so much better in those giant wide bowls. And this isn't even there for the aesthetic. This is just to help you keep some structure to it and not just get cherry all over your walls. But stack those pancakes in that dish, take as much of that vanilla cherry sauce as you want, and just keep going. Don't stop, keep going. I actually stopped because this vanilla cherry stuff's pretty good and I want to use it to make a little soda later today, kind of like that video I did before. But you at home, don't stop, go all the way. And then when you cut it, it's just doused in sauce. Each bite, you can see the little chocolatey explosions in there, plus the little bit of like bouncy chew you get from each of those tiny little cherry pieces you took so much time to cut. And it's delicious. It's great. And the crazy thing is, you just had breakfast. It tasted like dessert. You didn't spend $30 at a brunch restaurant for this. You got plenty of fiber from the flaxseed. Cherries, I guess, you got an okay amount of fiber. Cherries have some, but you got some healthy fats also from the flaxseed, and dark chocolate has some healthy fats in there too. I actually got a little upset because I took out a bag of hazelnuts and I wanted to crush some on top because I felt like that would have really put these together, but I forgot. You should do some hazelnuts on yours. And if you want this full recipe, other breakfast recipes, anything else that's like whole food, good for you, nutritious recipes, I have that cookbook out. You can check it out, description, website, or just keep following along. A lot of these recipes, like I don't even measure myself. I just kind of eye it and go by taste. Eventually you'll figure it out.